People often say money reveals a person's true character. I learned that poverty does too. My name is Ariana Okafor, and for the last 2 years, I worked as a maid inside one of the most luxurious mansions in Lagos, Nigeria. Every morning, I woke up before sunrise. By 5 o'clock, I was already polishing marble floors, preparing breakfast, and making sure every room looked perfect before the family woke up. No one ever thanked me. To them, I was invisible. The mansion belonged to Alexander Cole, one of Africa's youngest billionaire CEOs. He owned banks, hotels, shipping companies, and real estate worth billions. Despite his wealth, he rarely spoke to the staff, not because he was cruel, because he was always working. The real nightmare was his fiancée, Vanessa Richmond, beautiful, elegant, rich, and one of the coldest people I had ever met. From the first day she saw me, she decided I wasn't human. Maids shouldn't look people in the eyes. She'd say, "If I call your name, you run. If I repeat myself, you lose your salary." Every insult became part of my daily routine. One morning, while serving breakfast, my hands slipped slightly as I poured her coffee. Only a single drop landed on the tablecloth. Vanessa stood up so quickly that everyone froze. She grabbed the cup from the table and threw the rest of the hot coffee across my uniform. I gasped as the heat burned my arm. I'm sorry," I whispered. She looked at me with disgust. Sorry doesn't remove stains. People from poor villages never learn. The dining room was silent. Alexander looked up from his phone for only a second. "Ariana, are you all right?" Before I could answer, Vanessa interrupted. "She's fine. She's just being dramatic." Alexander returned to reading his emails. He never saw the burn on my arm. That night, I stood alone in the servants' quarters, treating the burn with cold water. My closest friend, Grace, another housemaid, looked at me with tears in her eyes. "You should quit." I smiled weakly. "I can't. My grandmother needs surgery. Without this job, I lose everything." What Grace didn't know, what no one knew, was that I wasn't born poor. Years ago, my grandfather had whispered something to me before he died. "One day, the truth will find you." At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. The next morning, the mansion buzzed with excitement. Vanessa's engagement party was only a week away. Politicians, celebrities, business leaders, hundreds of Nigeria's richest families would attend. Vanessa wanted everything perfect, which meant one thing: my life was about to become even more miserable. As I carried a box of expensive crystal decorations upstairs, I accidentally overheard Vanessa speaking on the phone. She laughed. "I don't care what happens to that maid. After the engagement party, she'll never work in this city again." I stopped walking. A chill ran down my spine. I had no idea why she hated me so much, but something inside me whispered. My life was about to change forever, and not in the way anyone expected. The next 7 days felt like a nightmare. Vanessa wanted her engagement party to be the most talked about event in Lagos. Every servant worked nearly 18 hours a day. Fresh flowers arrived by the thousands. Crystal chandeliers were polished until they sparkled. Luxury cars filled the driveway as decorators rushed in and out of the mansion. And somehow, nothing was ever good enough for Vanessa. One afternoon, she walked into the ballroom, wearing a custom-made designer gown worth more than I could earn in 10 years. She looked around the room with folded arms. Then her eyes landed on me. "Ariana." I hurried over. "Yes, ma'am?" She pointed toward the marble floor. I can still see fingerprints. I looked carefully. The floor was spotless. "I'm sorry, I'll clean it again." "You'd better. And this time, use your eyes." As I knelt to polish the floor again, I heard several wealthy guests laughing nearby. One woman whispered loudly, "Alexander is too kind. I would have fired that maid months ago." Another smiled, "Poor people should stay where they belong." I kept my head down. Years of poverty had taught me something. Sometimes silence protects your dignity better than anger. That evening, Alexander unexpectedly walked into the ballroom while I was arranging flowers. He noticed I was still working. "You've been here since morning, haven't you?" "Yes, sir. You should get some rest." Before I could answer, Vanessa appeared beside him. "She's paid to work. If she's tired, she can leave." Alexander looked uncomfortable. "Ariana has been working all week." Vanessa smiled sweetly. "Exactly. She should be grateful she even has this job." Alexander sighed and walked away without another word. I watched him disappear down the hallway. For a moment, I wished he had stayed. The night before the engagement party, I received a phone call from the village. It was the hospital. My grandmother's condition had become worse. The doctor explained that without surgery, she might not survive another month. The cost was impossible. I thanked him, ended the call, and quietly cried behind the servants' quarters. Grace hugged me tightly. "We'll find a way," I nodded, even though I didn't believe it. The next morning, the mansion looked like a palace. Luxury cars lined the entrance. Politicians, movie stars, business tycoons, television cameras. Every important person in Lagos seemed to be there. Grace whispered, "I've never seen this many rich people." Neither had I. As guests enjoyed champagne inside the grand ballroom, I continued serving drinks with a smile. Then, everything changed. Vanessa suddenly screamed, "My diamond necklace!" The music stopped. Hundreds of guests turned toward her. "My engagement necklace is gone." Security immediately closed every exit. Vanessa slowly looked around the room. Then she pointed directly at me. "Search the maid." The room fell completely silent. I froze. Me? "Yes, you. You're the only one who was near my dressing room." I didn't take anything. She stepped closer until we were face to face. "Then you won't mind if security checks your bag?" 2 guards walked toward me. My hands began to shake. Not because I had stolen anything, but because I realized Vanessa had been waiting for this moment all along. And as one of the guards reached for my bag, I had no idea that within the next few minutes, every life inside that mansion was about to change forever. One of the security guards grabbed my handbag. My hands trembled. Not because I was guilty, but because I knew no one would believe me. Vanessa folded her arms and smiled. "Open it." The guard slowly unzipped my bag. Inside were only a small lunchbox, an old notebook, my grandmother's medicine, and a faded photograph of us together. No necklace. The guests began whispering. Vanessa's smile disappeared. "Search her room." Without waiting for permission, she ordered the guards toward the servants' quarters. I couldn't believe what was happening. "You can't do that," I said quietly. She laughed. "I own this house soon. I can do whatever I want." The guards returned 15 minutes later. One of them held up a sparkling diamond necklace. "We found it." My heart stopped. "What? That's impossible. I've never seen that necklace before." Vanessa pretended to wipe away a tear. "I trusted you." "And this is how you repay me?" Several guests shook their heads. Someone whispered, "Poor people always want more." Another replied, "You can never trust a maid." The words hurt more than anything. Alexander finally stepped forward. "Ariana, did you take it?" I looked directly into his eyes. "No, sir. I swear on my grandmother's life." For a brief moment, he looked uncertain, but Vanessa grabbed his arm. "Alexander, don't be naive. The evidence is right there." He lowered his eyes. "I'm sorry, Ariana." "Security, escort her out." Those words shattered my heart. The guards gently took my arms and walked me toward the mansion's front entrance. Outside, rain had begun to fall. My uniform was soaked within seconds. Guests watched through the giant glass windows. Some laughed, others recorded the moment on their phones. Vanessa smiled proudly. The thief has finally been exposed, just as the gates began closing. A convoy of black luxury SUVs entered the driveway. Every security guard froze. The first vehicle stopped. An elderly gentleman stepped out wearing a perfectly tailored black suit. Behind him were several lawyers, business executives, and government officials. The old man looked around calmly before asking one question. "Which one of you is Miss Ariana Okafor?" The entire mansion fell silent. No one moved, no one spoke. I slowly raised my hand. "I'm Ariana." The old man smiled warmly. "We've been searching for you for almost 12 years. And in that moment, Vanessa's confident smile slowly began to disappear. The elderly lawyer walked toward me and opened a leather briefcase. He removed a thick stack of legal documents. Then he looked at me with tears in his eyes. "My name is Samuel Adeyemi. I was your grandfather's personal attorney." I stared at him in disbelief. "My grandfather?" He nodded. "Chief Emmanuel Okafor." The name echoed through the silent courtyard. Several older businessmen gasped. One of them whispered, "I thought his entire family died years ago." Samuel turned toward the crowd. "They didn't. He protected his only granddaughter." Vanessa frowned. "What nonsense is this?" Samuel ignored her. He handed me a sealed envelope. "Your grandfather left strict instructions. These documents could only be opened after your 23rd birthday." My fingers shook as I broke the seal. Inside was a handwritten letter. The first line stole my breath. "My dearest Ariana, if you're reading this, it means I've failed to protect you." Tears filled my eyes. Samuel continued speaking. "After Chief Okafor's death, corrupt business partners tried to seize his empire. To keep you alive, your grandmother hid your identity. You were raised as an ordinary girl. The world believed the Okafor bloodline had ended." Alexander stood frozen. He looked at me, then at the letter, as though he couldn't believe the woman he had just thrown out of his home was standing in front of him. Samuel cleared his throat. "As of this morning, every legal investigation has been completed. The courts have officially restored ownership." He closed the folder, then announced in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, "Miss Ariana Okafor, you are now the sole heir to the Okafor Group. The shipping company, the luxury hotels, the private jets, the real estate portfolio, the investment firms, and assets worth over $3.8 billion. All belong to you." The crowd erupted. Some guests covered their mouths. Others couldn't believe what they had just heard. Vanessa's face turned completely white. She stumbled backward. "No, that's impossible." Samuel looked directly at her. "No, Miss Richmond. The impossible is what you've done to the woman who now owns one of Africa's largest business empires." Alexander slowly walked toward me. For the first time, the billionaire wasn't looking at me like a maid. He was looking at me like someone he had failed. And I hadn't even begun to reveal the truth that would change all of their lives forever. Part 5. The Greatest Revenge. No one spoke. The only sound in the courtyard was the rain falling against the marble floor. Vanessa's hands were shaking. This has to be a joke." Samuel calmly handed the legal documents to Alexander. "It isn't. The Okafor Group officially became Miss Ariana Okafor's property at exactly 9 o'clock this morning." Alexander slowly read the papers. Every signature, every government seal, every document was real. He looked at me with disbelief. I failed you." I smiled sadly. "You didn't know who I was." He lowered his head. "No, I failed you because I never cared enough to find out." Those words hit harder than any apology. For 2 years, I had cleaned his home, served his meals, worked through pain, and all he ever saw was a maid. Vanessa suddenly rushed toward me. Her voice had completely changed. Ariana, I'm sorry. I didn't mean any of those things. I looked into her eyes. For the first time, there was no pride, only fear. I quietly asked if I were still poor. Would you be apologizing today? She couldn't answer, because we both already knew the truth. Samuel then handed me another folder. Miss Okafor, the board of directors is waiting for your instructions. Hundreds of eyes turned toward me. I could have fired everyone. I could have destroyed Vanessa's family. I could have bought Alexander's company out of revenge. Instead, I closed the folder. My grandfather spent his entire life building opportunities. I won't use his legacy to destroy people. Everyone stood in silence. I turned toward the house staff, the cooks, the gardeners, the cleaners, the security guards. Many of them had treated me with kindness when no one else did. As of today, no employee will lose their job because of what happened here. Several maids began crying. Grace covered her mouth in disbelief. Then I looked at Alexander. I don't blame you for being busy. I blame you for seeing titles before people. He nodded slowly. I deserve that, and I'll spend the rest of my life remembering it. Finally, I faced Vanessa. You tried to make me feel worthless because I wore a maid's uniform. But character has never been measured by a paycheck. It is measured by how you treat people who can do nothing for you. Security quietly escorted Vanessa from the mansion, not because I ordered it, but because Alexander ended their engagement himself. Months later, the Okafor Group became one of Nigeria's fastest-growing companies. I increased every employee's salary, created scholarships for children from poor villages, opened hospitals in my grandfather's name, and built a foundation that paid for life-saving surgeries for families who couldn't afford them. The very first surgery it funded was my grandmother's. She survived. One evening, we stood together on the balcony of our new headquarters overlooking Lagos. She squeezed my hand and smiled. Your grandfather always believed real wealth wasn't money. It was kindness. Tears filled my eyes. I finally understood what he meant. People expected me to become another billionaire hungry for revenge. Instead, I became the kind of leader I once prayed to work for. Because the greatest victory isn't proving your enemies wrong. It's proving that the pain they gave you could never take away your heart. And every morning, when I walk past the same marble floors I once polished as a maid, I don't remember the humiliation. I remember the promise I made to myself. No one who works for me will ever feel invisible again. That is the legacy I chose to leave.